Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Tucci and I am a participant in the 2024 World Heritage USA International Exchange Program. Today I'm going to talk to you about my experience this summer interning with the Kosovo Council for Cultural Heritage on the reevaluation of the Historic Center of Prizren. So I want to start with an introduction to the city of Prizren and the country of Kosovo. So Kosovo is a country in the Western Balkans that gained independence in 2008, and you can see it here pictured on the map. And right up here is the capital of the country, Pristina. This is where I lived for the entire summer. And down here is Prizren, which is where we did our field work 3 times a week. And so we traveled from Pristina to Prizren, which took about an hour and a half. And so you can see that Kosovo is just right in the middle of the Western Balkans, and it's actually the youngest country in Europe. But of course, their history did not start in 2008, and it really does have a rich history and a culture that's made up of many heritage elements. So the historical layers of Kosovo's history include the Neolithic era, the Roman period, the Serbian medieval period, the Ottoman era, the Ottoman Empire era, which they ruled from 1455 to 1912 for about 500 years, and the Yugoslavian period. And so the cultural elements of Kosovo include immovable heritage such as mosques, monasteries, churches. There's a famous archaeological park right outside of Pristina called Olpiana. There's also communist-era statues called spomeniks, and there's also heritage tied to the Albanian independence movement, such as the complex of the Albanian League of Prizren, which is actually located in the historic center of Prizren. So the rich history is also reflected in the movable heritage and ethnographic collections, such as traditional costumes, household objects, and those are housed, all over the country. And there is a wonderful ethnographic museum in Pristina, which is a great place to visit, that also houses these objects. And so now I want to talk a little bit about Prizren, which is where we conducted our fieldwork this summer. So this is the most historically intact city of Kosovo, and I have it pictured here on the right-hand side. So you'll see actually some elements of the Ottoman era heritage, such as the famous stone bridge, right in the middle here, right here. And you'll also see the Sinan Pasha Mosque, which is right here. And those are Ottoman era, of course. And then perched up here on this hill is the Prizren Fortress, which has foundations dating back to the Roman era. And of course, it was used as a defensive standpoint for the city. And now it's a great tourist destination. And then up here on the hill, you can also see there is a famous Serbian Orthodox church. And Prizren is traditionally a city that has a rich multi-ethnic, multi-religious heritage, and that is actually really reflected in the built heritage here. So moving on to the context of how cultural heritage is managed in Kosovo, because I think that's actually quite important to understand what we did here in Prizren over the summer. The country has numerous laws and mechanisms for the protection of cultural heritage at central governmental levels and at local levels. So the chart that you see here on the screen shows the levels of cultural heritage management. So you will see this yellow arrow pointing to the Council for Cultural Heritage. So they are a governmental institution, and they are overseen by the Parliament of Kosovo. And also at the governmental level, adjacent to the Kosovo Council for Cultural Heritage, we have the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, and the Ministry of Environmental and Spatial Planning. Both of these institutions oversee smaller inspectorates, institutions, and divisions involved in the protection of cultural heritage. And so, as I mentioned before, my placement this summer with the IEP program was with the Kosovo Council for Cultural Heritage, and they have a mandate that consists of assessing cultural heritage across the country that should be put under permanent protection. They conduct project evaluation. They define financial priorities in the field of cultural heritage in Kosovo, and they also cooperate with domestic and international institutions to enhance and safeguard the cultural heritage of the Republic of Kosovo. So I felt really lucky to be working at an institution that plays such an important part in the protection of cultural heritage in Kosovo, which is a very important thing. Okay, so moving on, I want to discuss the actual evaluation that we did this summer and the purpose of the reevaluation of the Historic Center of Prizren in a broader context. So this is a multi-year project, and the purpose of this is to cross-reference and update the Historic Center of Prizren parcel maps, to conduct a parcel-by-parcel documentation survey of heritage assets in the Historic Center, deliver a detailed report on the reevaluation that includes the physical condition of buildings and also possible interventions that might be needed for buildings that might not be in good condition, and also importantly evaluating if the buffer zone that protects the Historic Center of Prizren needs to be extended. And so just to situate ourselves, I have a picture here of the Historic Center of Prizren, which is taken from the management plan for the Historic Center of Prizren. So just to orient ourselves, right here is the Prizren Fortress that we talked about a few slides ago. And this blue line indicates the protection zone of the Historic Center of Prizren. And so the buildings in this zone fall under special protection laws, and there's also a buffer zone that surrounds this zone that is not pictured. So you can also see the Lombardy River right here. It runs through the Historic Center of Prizren, and we did our evaluation in Zone 6. And Zone 6 is about here, I would say, give or take. But it's on this part of this side of the river and in this general area. So moving on to the work that we did this summer, I want to start by talking about the preparations we did for fieldwork. So when I arrived in Pristina in the middle of June, I spent the first few weeks of my placement helping with the fieldwork prep. So this included mapping the parcels in Zone 6 so we could produce the maps that we would bring into the field, conducting background research on Zone 6, and also the broader context of heritage management in Prizren. And we also took time to meet with the Regional Center of Cultural Heritage in Prizren. This was really important to do because they are a significant stakeholder in the management of the Historic Center, and they also have the most up-to-date information about the center and the priorities and, lots of good information. And so you can actually see on the top picture here, this was our meeting with the regional center. And also, if we can recall from the chart from a few slides ago, the regional center of Prizren, they rest under the Ministry of Culture. And the bottom picture here is Argenda and I in our offices comparing maps after we map the parcels. So moving on to just talk a little bit about Zone 6. So this summer we continued last year's evaluation of Zone 6 because actually the IEP intern who was placed with the Kosovo Council for Cultural Heritage last year started the Zone 6 evaluation, and we continued it this year. So this zone is actually the oldest part of the city, and it contains really important heritage assets such as the Archaeological Museum, which you can actually see pictured here. It is housed in an old hammam, which is a bath, a Turkish bath, that has been converted into the museum. And you can also see the 19th century clock tower here, which if you climb up to the top of it, it gives you a really nice view of Prizren and the mountains surrounding the city. This zone also features the Church of the Holy Virgin Laviša, which is a Serbian Orthodox church and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this zone also features a 19th century an abundance actually of 19th century traditional houses that still retain traditional architecture. And so I actually have photos of the church and a traditional house on further slides, so you can see them in a little bit. And one of the things that we are keeping in mind in our evaluation of Zone 6 and the overall broader evaluation of the Historic Center of Prizren is that there are issues of heritage buildings being obstructed by new constructions, and particularly the traditional houses are being obstructed by new constructions, and there is also some issues of unauthorized construction that does not align with the management plan for the Historic Center of Prizren. So that is an issue, a known issue that was also included in the in the management plan, but it's also an issue that we of course encountered in the field. Okay, so then just to talk a little bit about what we actually did when we were in the field. So as I mentioned before, this reevaluation consisted of a parcel by parcel survey of Zone 6. So on a day-to-day, this included photographing the buildings, determining if the parcel has historic heritage value, color coding our maps based on if the parcel is heritage, partial heritage, or contains no heritage, and evaluating the conditions of the buildings and documenting this information in a master spreadsheet. So you can actually see here pictured there our team, our small team. We are sitting on the curb comparing maps and looking at buildings. So we had one map that we were filling in and color coding as we went, and we also had another map that we used as a reference for understanding where we were. So yeah, it was a fun time in the field. And so this is actually the beginning of our field work. In the picture on the left, you can see my supervisor, Argenda. She is explaining to me what the process of the survey is going to be. And we're holding our maps and our tablets and really getting a sense of what we're going to be doing this summer. And then on the right side is our map. It is filled out a little bit, but it was one of our first maps that we were working on, and you can see it's color coded. And so as we were determining the heritage value of the buildings, we were filling it out with our highlighters. So green indicates the parcel is modern, yellow indicates partial heritage, and blue indicates that it is distinctly cultural heritage. Okay, so I wanted to include some pictures from our survey, just so you could really see and get a sense of what we were looking at on a day-to-day basis when we were out in the field. So the first thing I want to point out here is the number that is on each photo. So this is actually the parcel number that corresponds with the parcel number on the map. So every photo we took time to label the photo so that when we went back to loading these pictures into our spreadsheet and also just kind of looking at the photos for anything we would need in the analysis, that we would know where it corresponds on the map. And so then on the top left here, this is a picture of a 19th century traditional home that is under permanent protection for its heritage value. And you can see there are traditional architectural elements included here. It's quite a beautiful home. And the picture on the bottom left I thought was very interesting to include. It's actually a modern home, but on the roof you can see that it incorporated traditional elements in the construction. While it's not historic, it does kind of speak to the historic nature of the Historic Center of Prizren, which is where it's located. And I thought that was very nice that the owners did that. And on the right side, of course, this is the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Church of the Holy Virgin Laetitia. And this is our end result of our survey. So this is one of a few parcel maps that we have. And some of the unlabeled parcels here, these are ones that we had already completed. And yeah, so you can see a lot of it is modern. in this area. But we had some heritage, which you can see in the blue, and a lot of partial heritage. So these are buildings that have modern elements, but they've also retained some of their heritage value. And then on the right, you can see the map that we were using to compare as our guide, to compare to the parcel map that we had to fill out while we were in the field. Okay, and then I just wanted to use this last slide to talk a little bit about my life in Kosovo this summer, because I really had such a good summer and I really enjoyed living in Pristina, the capital, and doing fieldwork in Prizren. So the picture on the left, this is the Grand Hotel. This is where the offices of the Kosovo Council for Cultural Heritage is. This is actually a famous landmark in Pristina, and it's a really distinctive piece of the skyline of Pristina. I really enjoyed working here, and it was a 10-minute walk from my apartment, so that was really convenient. I also appreciated that they had a Free Ukraine sign on the side of the building. And the next picture is the sunset from my balcony. I really enjoyed sitting on my balcony in the evening and watching the sunset when I was home. I had a view of the mountains and other parts of the city, which were really interesting. And the picture on the bottom here is from our visit to Olpiana, which is the archaeological park that's right near Pristina. It was actually a really wonderful time to spend with my two colleagues, Argenda and Betim. We had a fun time just going around the park and learning about the archaeological elements there, and also some of the work that the council had done previously. But the reason why I have the fruit pictured here is actually something I noticed about Kosovo, which I really enjoyed, is that there's just like an abundance of fresh fruit that's available for picking. And one of my colleagues was very good at finding fresh fruits, and this picture was from some of the plums he found for me when we were at the archaeological park, and it really just summed up my summer, how lovely my summer was. And this last picture is Argenda and I drinking bubble tea, and it's something that I love personally. I drink all the time when I'm at home in Philadelphia, and it's something she wanted to try. And we also tried sushi together and matcha, and I think I actually converted her into a sushi lover, so that was great. And not pictured here is I started Albanian classes, which is something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I actually intend to continue this when I'm back in the United States. So I wanted to end my presentation by saying thank you and faleminderit, which is thank you in Albanian, and I will get better at pronouncing that as I continue my Albanian classes, but for now, that's what it is. So I am really so grateful that I had this opportunity to spend in Kosovo this summer, and I'm so thankful to World Heritage USA for this opportunity and for the existence of the IEP program. It's such an important program. Cultural exchange is such an important thing for all of us cultural heritage professionals to do. And I'm particularly thankful to my colleagues at the Kosovo Council for Cultural Heritage for welcoming me so warmly and making me feel part of the team. And, I also spent my birthday in Kosovo, and they really just celebrated my birthday with me. And it was just really, I felt really so welcomed, and it was just a really lovely experience. And so thank you again, and thank you for listening, and bye.